Welcome. Today, we continue our quest through the Psalms, focusing more specifically on Psalms of wisdom. However, to understand more deeply what the role of these Psalms is, we must first take a step back and see how they fit into the big picture. To explain this, I have relied heavily on various writings from Richard Rohr on the subject. Rohr explains that the Hebrew scriptures are divided into three major sections: the Torah, the prophets, and the wisdom books. We shall look at all of them briefly to understand what the role of the Psalms of wisdom is in the grand scheme of the Old Testament. Walter Brueggemann says that these three sections represent the ordinary and healthy development of human consciousness in a sequential way. The Torah gave the Israelites the law and a sense of their chosenness. For healthy development, any culture or family must follow this pattern of first providing structure, which develops identity, boundaries, self-worth as beloved and special. The second set of books is the Jewish prophets, and they represent the birth of critical thinking. The prophets have clearly been the most neglected part of Scripture for both Jews and Christians because neither group showed much capacity for healthy self-criticism. The wisdom section of the Hebrew Scriptures includes the books of Job, Ecclesiastes, Song of Songs, and many of the Psalms. Such wisdom literature reveals an ability to finally be patient with mystery and contradictions. Wisdom people have passed through major death of their ego. This is the core meaning of transformation. It opens you to what Marcus Borg and others have rightly called alternative wisdom, instead of mere maintenance of social order or conventional wisdom. Yet most Christian history tried to understand Jesus inside the first stage of law and the need for social order. Jesus' Sermon on the Mountain is anything but maintaining the status quo, and it goes far beyond mere negative or critical thinking. Another way to look at this is a series of order, disorder, and reorder. Most conservatives get trapped in the first step, and most liberals get stuck in the second. Healthy religious people are all about getting to the third, reorder. You must learn the wisdom of both the first and the second stages before you move on. According to Rohr, the disorder part is necessary and keeps all order from becoming idolatrous and self-serving. The prophets helped the Israelites see that they were using religion to worship themselves and not Yahweh. Prophetic criticism is never good news for pretenders or opportunists, which is just about all of us until we learn the compassion, mercy, forgiveness that this order teaches us. Liberation theology, the prophets, and the view from the side of pain is absolutely necessary to move us onto the third stage of true wisdom. To pass through wisdom, we need to experience a major humiliation to our ego. This often comes through suffering or failure, anything that brings us to readiness before grace and mystery. But that very desire for grace and God is best created by an initial experience of love, order, meaning, purpose, and direction. The easiest path of growing up spiritually is to start with some law and order. Then we must critically recognize that order cannot solve all or even most problems, especially pain and suffering. Finally, without rejecting either order or disorder, grace will move you towards God's reorder. This is enlightened awareness, which is not nearly as common as we would like. We have to go through interior deaths to reach the third stage of wisdom. Only here does contemplation and non-dual thinking become possible. We can begin to learn to live with mystery and paradox and to develop true compassion. If stage 1 is order and stage 2 is disorder, then stage 3 is the final goal of reorder. I can think of many examples of people getting stuck in stage 1 and 2 in order and disorder. For example, recently I have been hearing people criticize protests. Their rejection of these actions is fed by their need of order, even in the face of injustice and oppression. I have also encountered people who are incapacitated by their anger and the despair they feel in the face of orderly systematic oppressions. Wisdom literature teaches us to hold both the order and disorder and look for a third way, God's reorder, which does not ask us to ignore the issues and complexities of the situation, but pushes us to respond with compassion, mercy, and forgiveness. For example, let's look at Psalm 139, the inescapable God. O Lord, you have searched me and you know me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You search out my path and my lying down. You are acquainted with all my ways. Even before my word isn't on my tongue, O Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in, behind, and before, and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is so high that I cannot attain it. Where can I go from your spirit, or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascended to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and settle at the farthest limits of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light around me become night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day, for darkness is as light to you. For it was you who formed me in my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works that I know very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of earth. Your eyes beheld my unformed substance. In your book were written all the days that were formed for me, when none of them as yet existed. How weighty to me are your thoughts, O God! How vast is the sum of them! I try to count them. They are more than the sand. I come to the end, and I am still with you. Oh, that you would kill the wicked, O God, and that the bloodthirsty would depart from me. Those who speak of you maliciously and lift themselves up against you for evil. I do not hate those who hate. Do I not hate those who hate you, O Lord? And do I not loathe those who rise up against you? I hate them in perfect hatred. I count them as my enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my thoughts. See if there is any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. This psalm looks at God as the source of creation and goodness. However, it does not pretend there aren't any hardships in life. Although God is the source, there can still be disorder, as in darkness. Nevertheless, God is there, even in the darkness, even in despair, even when we might not feel God surrounding us. Psalm 139 acknowledges the existential experience, the human feelings, yet it also looks beyond that at the hope God provides by superseding it all. Beyond naming the order and disorder of creation, it also names the reorder. God ever present, compassionate, merciful, and forgiving. But what about the awful verses about loathing the enemy? Are those honestly wise words for all of us to follow? Commentary writer James H. Waltner explains that although the vehemence of these verses causes great difficulty for interpreters, the hatred spoken is not spite, but zeal for the Lord. The enemies of the Lord are the psalmist's enemies, and the psalmist puts himself at all possible distance from them. Vengeance is clearly left in the hands of God. Furthermore, after making these strong statements, the psalmist confesses that he himself needs examination. He ends up with the petition, "Search me, O God, and know my heart." The prayer reflects the possibility of wrong in the self. This self-examination is a sign that the psalmist has moved beyond the order and disorder stage and is seeking God's reorder to take place. And if it is still hard for you to connect with the psalmist, let me give you a personal example. I hate openly racist people. I cannot stand them. I wish they weren't around. I have no patience for them. I wish God would get rid of all of them. But I don't mean I wish God would kill them. I mean, I wish they wouldn't be racist, that their words, actions, and values wouldn't be of such racist nature. Yet I hate when Black, Indigenous, and people of color die at the hands of white police officer, shooter, attacker. I hate when anybody, but especially Black, Indigenous, and people of color's bodies are treated with less respect and less dignity, and tortured or killed on the streets for no reason, or even a reason, because I don't think anyone deserves a death sentence. I hate this, and I believe that those who commit these murders, those who torture bodies, are the enemies of God, that they don't understand who God is. It is not up to me, however, to take revenge for these victims. And I also acknowledge that I am not the perfect person without any biases. I act in ways that are not godly many times, and I need God's guidance to continue moving forth in humility. I appreciate how the psalmists, the Psalms of wisdom allow me to guide some of my feelings. I like it how in the midst of order and disorder, I can look towards God, God's reorder with hope. I thank God for the wholeness of Scripture and the possibility of growth beyond order and disorder for this world.